Sorry about that, everyone. We're just getting ready for the. Oh God. Oh, Robex should stop doing that. Like Jesus. Okay, I'm sorry for everyone. Unmute myself. Record without audio. I'm muted. That's great. All right. For some reason, they're testing this out with very loud volume. Apologies for anyone that's tuning in. Push that request to speak button. See if we can get them to talk a little quieter. Okay. Let's see what's going on here. The Curio cards. Oh, request sent. That worked well. Oh, God. It's not funny when you're really loud in a chat like this. I've had my. I need a way to mute this. Let's see. Again, apologies to our listeners. I'm trying to make this quieter, having less success here. This is definitely the first question I'd like to start off with. No, I mean, back in the day, there were no NFT projects. There were none. I mean, obviously, in the redevelopment in 2021 on or what have you, there was a lot of like, this is the first, that is the first, and of course, we all know that CryptoPunks marketed themselves as the first for years, even though we know that they met Travis on video and acknowledged that we both existed together. So I know about Etheria. I know about those really cool tiles. It's like a board game kind of. I know about it's a copy of the $1 million homepage pixel map. That's a good one. Everything else, I'm not sure about. They keep having debates and fights. If you're here to have that fight, good luck with that. But if we want to move on to anything else, can everyone hear everyone? Is everything working now? So it seems like 7 years ago, Travis, Rhett, and I got together with a couple people who advised us, like Rick Chan and Marshall Hayner and Jackson Palmer a little bit. And we talked about startup ideas. And I just been let go from two startups. They always let the marketing guy go first. I learned that afterwards. So, I was looking for something new to do, and my main thing was if I'm in charge of the startup, then I can't be fired. So that was a good plan, I thought. And that's what I was saying. I was saying we'll do, what I want to do, what we want to do as a team. We picked up Travis, we picked up Rhett from the meetup through Rick, who knew Rhett, and also Marshall suggested him as well. And we got going on different ideas on how to start a startup. A lot of our ideas were about tokens and different ways that you could use tokens. And it's really neat and really rewarding now. We talked on my show, the Bitcoin Group, recently about this band called Avenged Sevenfold, and they're like a metal band or something, and they're doing all these fun NFT ideas like a pass and rewards for their audience, and you can collect their NFTs. And this is basically what we came to with the NFTs and with the Curio cards, is that this was a great way for people to have a connection to the artist, whether it's a musician or a painter, that kind of thing. You can hold that in your account and you can be a fan. And just as I'm a big fan of the band REM, if you want to be a big fan of X Copy or Max Infeld or Robeck or any of these guys here or anyone else, you can buy their NFTs, you can support them. And as far as their value, we always saw them as collectibles. We are always, these have as much value as you're willing to pay, similar to a Beanie Baby or something like that, or a baseball card. Of course, I'm big into baseball cards, Magic cards, those kind of things. So we wanted to make a collectible, and we put it out to the market. We put it out to our friends, and I don't think anyone but Moon and Robeck bought it. Maybe we'll talk to Robeck a little here. Early in the days, we had a Telegram channel. We had a YouTube video where we would announce the new cards live on Tuesday. And there was pretty much no one in the chat except for Moon and Robeck. And Robeck sent us some artwork, and maybe Robeck could take it from there. And hopefully Robeck could be a little less loud. Last time he really blown me out, so hopefully just a little bit less. Thank you, Robeck. Now that sounds good. You were just loud before. Apologies. Go ahead. Yep, and how you made artwork in a kind of line art, and it was where are the new cards, and the guy with flashing us, and all those kind of things. Just tell people how you kind of found the project and what you thought about it. And again, we're talking about a time where there's no OpenSea, there's no NFTs, there's no NFT market, there's not even NFT haters. No one cares enough to hate us. Yeah.
When you started to open up, I thought maybe it'd be cool to be able to contribute to it. So just really through word of mouth. And I'm, I don't know. I mean, I think that's the idiot version of it. I'm sure there's more details, but I will need to be prompted as I am part AI now.
Robot, can you tell us what video game you're playing, like at the same time? Because we hear the keystrokes going on. So
No, I'm actually writing a dissertation. I'm actually writing a dissertation right now. I was writing down notes of what I needed to say.
Which Curio cards were you behind?
21 through 23. Can
you name them?
Yeah, the wizard, the bard, and the barbarian.
Oh, those ones! I love those ones.
Oh, thank you. I love you.
I'm partial to the Bard myself.
Yeah, you
I
resemble
have a
him a little
framed
bit.
copy of it behind me.
Really? Wow. Wow. That's
Yeah.
cool. All right. I took my hands off the keyboard so you guys wouldn't yell at me anymore. I had to get to a save point.
Hey, Robeck,
Yeah,
what
when you were
made you what
talking,
made you
Matt.
what made you use Travis and Mad Bitcoins as kind of the inspirations for those? What was your thought process with that?
Well, I'm pretty
Kind
unoriginal,
of the
and I couldn't come up with any good
inspirations
ideas.
for those. What was your
So I was like, well, maybe if I draw the founders, they'll let me do the art. No, not really. I had wanted to do a fantasy set, and I'd started some stuff which was a little bit more retro. And when they told me I couldn't do like these really big animations, I kind of swapped gears, and I had to redraw everything. So I figured, why not make it about these guys that I came to know over the course of 20 card drops or whatever. Or not 20, like, well, I guess 20 cards have come out beforehand. So we'll say technically 20 card drops. And yeah, I mean, it's not vastly different than what you saw projects like Apes do later on, where they made like the honoraries for the people, right? I mean, I think it's kind of a similar sort of mindset.
were
Yeah, I
the
really liked how that turned out, right? Because we had the mixed media, there were the physical pieces, digital pieces, but also, like Card 20 is like a Patreon thing, support an artist, the cards you did, the honorary, referencing people card. We kind of like throughout the collection, you'll find examples of a lot of NFT, motifs that ended up being full projects later on down the line. We kind of touched on everything.
Hey, Robeck, I have a
We
question
were
for
just
you.
trying to explore what the space was capable of doing.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons it was so interesting. I mean, really, what got me into crypto for real was Curio and the idea of these like digital collectibles and the different things that we could do, or the different potentials that were there. It was never really the coin trading or anything like that for me, which is like a
That was
vastly different
yeah.
entry point. Well, not anymore, like not 2021
No,
post, but back
but that was
then.
100%. Yeah, that was 100% the dream. I remember that was like, if we could make a thing where someone doesn't have any crypto, doesn't care about crypto, but is a talented artist, can get involved. I mean, it started with the art show that we did the year before, with the meetup group that me and me and Mad Bitcoins ran, and that was absolutely like the brainstorming session was like, what if we made a thing where people who don't care about, making money day trading or whatever, but are talented and are valuable to the space and the ecosystem? When Matt was talking earlier, reminded me of there was a project called Tatiana Coin at the time. There was a musician who made her own coin. And it's like ideas like that were like, man, this is really cool, but you have to be like super technical, spin up your own thing, fork your own project, run your own validators, like real or miners, were really hard to do. And here comes along Vitalik with like his whole line of, hey, with 20 lines of code, you can, do anything. So it was perfect.
Well, and also back in the day of Tatiana Coin, Adam, crap, I just forgot his name. Let's Talk Bitcoin.
Levine.
Adam Levine. Yeah,
Adam
Adam B.
Levine.
Levine. At Let's Talk Bitcoin, he had a fantastic project called Tokenly. And it's actually taken off during the end of the NFT boom. And it was all about tokenizing things like tokenizing songs, raising money for the artist, tokenizing, I don't know, book, raising money for an artist. And he even made a lot of sample tokens like token 001 and so forth. And they actually turned out to be quite valuable and it got a lot of respect. But a lot of people were definitely working on these token ideas, as well as, of course, Spells of Genesis, pretty much the first, NFT magic card type project I'd heard of. And of course, Rare Pepe's after that, both of those on Counterparty, though.
And right on the sort of tails of all of that, we were at one of our meetup events, Tom, and Crypto Graffiti walks up and says, hey, I do art about crypto. And there have been like the crypto crafts fair. There had been some, like merchant meetups and things like that. And there was 20 Mission had like in a gallery in it where you could buy artwork with Bitcoin. But it had always been kind of more like the medium of exchange rather than the focus of the work. And so I really, when Crypto Graffiti started talking about like, his work and like how he does it about crypto and how you could like be an artist discussing the culture of crypto itself, it just made a ton of sense that we throw an art show, and that was kind of the seed of a lot of this.
Well, and it was great to see kind of a second level artists like Crypto Graffiti, who, like you said, had really thought about it. I know I went to an early art show that Sarah Blinko held at the San Jose Tech Center, and it was called Bitcoin Beauties. And they were lovely, but a lot of times they took like a landscape painting and put the Bitcoin logo on the sun. And I've seen a lot of that lately as well. But it was great to see things like Crypto Graffiti, where he had not only the materials that he were using, like pieces of cut up credit cards or other things like that, but also the message behind it. Like he had early ones about halving and mining, and they were kind of like propaganda posters, and those were really great. There was also some other artists like Coin Artist, who made these puzzles back in the day that were kind of similar to NFTs. If you crack the puzzle, you win the money. In the same way, if you have the key to your NFT, you can buy and sell it and that kind of thing. And then there was a guy named Cripsy, who I think is still doing art today. And he made a lot of art where it was kind of a Bitcoin wallet built into the art. So though I don't suggest it, you could put your money on a frame, on a paper wallet, basically, and imbibe your piece with the value of Bitcoin, maybe like a zero point 0.1 or
I'll imbibe the
0.01.
piece, if you know what I mean.
Oh, hold on,
I think
I need to
Adam
take away
had
some
a
speaker
hand or
rights.
something.
One
Go ahead,
moment.
Adam.
Yeah, Robeck. One thing, when you were saying that, did you originally plan that all of your cards were going to be animated? Because that was interesting. I didn't know if that was true or not.
Yeah. I mean, and it's actually not that surprising, because even the stuff I've done in the past 3 or 4 years is, I think probably 75% of the art that I make has got some form of animation to it. So back then I wanted to do it too.
And Robeck, we know what one of your fantasy cards was going to be.
Yeah.
What were the other ones?
One was a rogue, and then I had a different wizard. But I don't love them. So I mean, I didn't necessarily love the one that I released, but it was the most interesting because it was like kind of the template model that I would have used as far as like what holographic could have been. So, but I just didn't release the other two. I'd also done even smaller, like 32 by 32 pixelated, like animated pirate, and that was like full animation on the character, not like overlay based. But yeah, mostly just ended up doing the founders, which was I think more fun, and I think it's more of an interesting story long term.
Was there like a technical reason why you couldn't do larger files with the IPS pinning back then, or was that just or how did you guys come to that decision to limit it for file size?
Yeah, the technical reason was that they told me I couldn't.
Yeah, I don't think it was a limitation with IPFS, if memory serves right, because IPFS doesn't really care. I think it was more just a limitation of there wasn't like really good caching for IPFS and not a lot of great options for that kind of stuff. So the website would load super slow if you put anything, too big.
Oh, okay.
Now they have a lot better streaming options around that.
Okay, that makes sense.
I also think it's worth noting Robeck's Gauntlet commercial for his cards. It was on YouTube. I think it's one of the first kind of commercials for an NFT collectible. And he talks about
It's got to be the first
the
one.
barbarian, the bard, the wizard, the different characters that you can collect. And like Robeck were saying, we were talking about all the kind of collectors' ideas here. Like we wanted this to look like a binder. We wanted there to be rare ones. We didn't know about the misprint, of course. But like Robeck was saying, we talked about kind of foil cards, different borders, holograms, animation. But we could really only come up with the winking guy for this animation. And then, as Robeck's complained frequently, we got better later on. I'm not sure how that happened for card 30. But yes, remember that Gauntlet
got a little bit better
animation
at
for
caching the
Robeck.
website. Yeah, I got a little bit better at rendering things out on the website. There were a little bit better options. I mean, you said there, Tom, that like we didn't know about the misprint. I mean, that's perfect, right? That's like the whole point of a misprint is the thing accidentally fell off the factory.
Well, and I reread one of those articles, and they said how ironic that the misprint was on UASF, the fork card, right? The split card turns out to be split, and I wish that we had planned it and that we were crafty and we told Rhett to break the contract. But no, I think it was just a mistake, like you guys have said in the past. You know, Rhett put the contract out there. Somebody actually bought from it, which was amazing. We found them later on in the chat, so they had a copy of 17B. But otherwise, you know, you're a programmer working on a project pretty much for himself here. This is just, you know, Rhett working for himself. And he made a mistake. He reset the contract and relaunched the cards. So it was a really cool story.
Yeah. The yeah, because there's at least two things that I can think of that are stories that no one believes me. You know, like that kind of thing. Like the fact that the forked card was the card about the Bitcoin fork, and the fact that like the day before the rediscovery, I tweeted out that I'd quit my job and was excited about, you know, an ambiguous next thing, when I was just more like saying, I don't know what I'm gonna do next. The timing of and the coincidence of both those things just make no sense. You just do a bunch of stuff and weird coincidences happen. But like, to the defense of the 17, it was 18 and 19 or all effect, like they were actually the ones that were bugged. 17 was the one that was not messed up, so that's why you could buy it. So the flaw is actually in 18 and 19, and they are not about the Bitcoin fork.
Definitely go ahead, Adam.
Oh no, I didn't have my hand up. Sorry.
I think it's still up from before.
Yeah, it's still
I was
up.
trying. I was sorry. That's a glitch. Twitter's glitching. I was actually looking for. I was trying to find Robeck's ad on YouTube. I will pin it if I'm able to find it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
you
can
won't
find it.
you won't find it because it's hidden.
Oh, you've hidden it again, Robeck? God.
I hid
damn
it. It's been hidden since the relaunch. I think it's on the Curio site underneath my card thing.
Yeah, if you go to curio.cards and click on his card, it's in the description. There's a little embedding. If CryptoPop ends up joining too, we can have him talk about his cards because he was 17. He was 17B. He said he would try to make it, but he's in a different time zone.
Now, when you guys were talking about crypto graffiti, I mean, one of the things we saw a lot of talking about the big book that got launched like a month ago now, you know, that giant coffee table book, and obviously Curio was featured in it. Did they talk to you guys ahead of time about that? And obviously, I don't know if any of you can speak to, you know, crypto graffiti's Curio's not being included, if any of you know anything about that.
I know a little bit, so I can jump in case unless somebody knows more. They did reach out and talk to everybody ahead of time. This was also like 2 years ago, like a year. Like it was quite a while ago when they started working on this book. It was a huge endeavor. It's not just physically massive; it's also just the amount of work put into it is extremely massive. Kudos to them for sticking with it. But yeah, they required explicit permission from all of the artists involved. And that's just not crypto graffiti style, is my understanding. He's not the kind who's going to be going out giving explicit permission. You know, his whole thing's permissionless, so he doesn't sign anything. He doesn't fill out any forms. I believe that's what that was about. If there's more to the story, I apologize if I'm missing that. But what I heard kind of secondhand was it just came down to that. Interestingly enough, you'll notice that card 30, who's the most anonymous artist, is present. So they managed to get a signature on something there, but I don't think they had to reveal their identity for that.
Yeah, it's disappointing the crypto graffiti cards weren't included. I don't know what the rights issue is, of course, not a lawyer and so forth, but the new NFT yearbook did include, well, I guess it didn't include the crypto graffiti pieces, but it did have an article about Robeck and Max Infeld and Mad Bitcoin. So there's lots of Curio cards in there as well. But I do think it will be a continuing rights issue going forward, especially if he's not willing to sign anything. And it's just unfortunate. I'd like to see the cards included.
Yeah, it's also very on brand with what it is that we were trying to create, this sort of external to the gallery ecosystem that already existed. I mean, on Curio Card's documentation page, you will see a lot of the artists have since made explicit rights licensing permissions. I think about half the artists kind of agreed on similar licensing, but it is still ad hoc in a lot of ways. There's not one unified front. If you want to do something with Curio cards, you usually either need to get permission from all the artists individually, or only focus on the ones who've made explicit licenses. But yeah, that's just the nature of creating an open project with multiple contributors.
Well, and it's kind of nice, really, if you look at the CryptoPunks project, it was sold to the people that do the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And that's really kind of been unfortunate for the project, whereas Curio cards, I don't think, could be sold, not as a group. The only way they can really be sold is as the cards from the Ethereum contract, or if you wrap them, you could buy them on OpenSea. But again, all of this is, at your own risk. There's not really a company or a structure underlying it.
Yeah, and that's the pros and the cons, right? I completely agree. Yeah, I have no ability to rug the community that I'm aware of. There's no switch or thing that I could sign that would have any effect on anything.
And one of the really nice things, and they did a good job covering it in that new YouTube video they made a couple days ago, is that Curio cards were all put in the vending machines. We didn't hold any back for the company. We didn't hold any back for the artist. We didn't hold any back for ourselves. If we wanted to buy them, we had to go to the vending machine. And that was one of the reasons why the success of the rediscovery was so great, is when Harry BTC found the vending machines, instead of just buying all the cards himself, or never telling anyone, he put it out on Twitter how to buy the cards, and this led to a whole rush of people, I think Adam McBride involved, as well as others, who could buy the cards on the open market fairly from the vending machines, just as the original people could, for the same amount of Ethereum. We didn't have a way to change the contract, nor would we really. We launched them when we launched them, and that was it. And I think this kind of fair launch to Curio cards is underestimated for what it's done for card distribution, and just for open of opportunity. Anyone could have made money on these cards. There was a lot of chance for anyone to get in. So it's really cool.
Yeah, and every penny of the sales to those vending machines went directly to the artists whose cards were in those vending machines. We had the royalties set up as well, and a really classy move from Harry, and I think also Diaping was one of the early people to not just buy everything and squat on it. They were interested in the art. They were interested in the project. They weren't trying to. It's just very still early days, and NFTs kind of taking off. So it wasn't like oh my gosh, here's a thing I can just squat. They were more interested in sharing what they discovered. And it just really helped keep that amazing kind of general culture and vibe that we still have going today.
And it was a really exciting day too. I think it was the day after the Saturday Night Live parody music video came out, and they're like, "Prices go up and down, you see." And it was he's left the show now. I forgot his name, but he did a great job rapping about NFTs in the Eminem style. It was great. What's his name?
Well, looks like we have another artist here as well. Max, did you want to share your experiences with Curio cards?
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, it's been such a crazy journey. Yeah, so I've known Tom for many, many years, and he hits me up. Do you have any art? And I'm like, of course I got art. Been making art my whole life, and I've been in crypto since the very early days. I've been focusing on using currency for communities, and kind of expressing that through art. And a lot of the times people would even question whether that's art or not. But anyway, um, I had a series that I've been working on for a few years, and it was kind of the opposite of everything I learned in school. So in art school, they teach you like use high quality materials, like cotton paper, and like things are going to last an eternity. And so I started making a series that was out of like foam core and like just photocopies and just kind of like cheap stuff, and it was crowdsourced. And in school, like they want to put the artist on a pedestal. You're working towards your own degree, not like a community project degree. So I had this project where I had people helping me like Google images and print them out on this like crappy laser print copier, color them in, assemble them, make compositions, and it's an algorithm I could share with anyone who wants it. But I call that Marisol Vengas as a collective, and I had a lot of trouble selling art until this, and then started selling these in like coffee shops, and the prices on these things are like $20. Like I think the more prices on these things are like $50 or something. and had the art shows all over California and Oregon. And anyway, yeah, I had a flip phone at the time and took some funny images of these original pieces of art. And yeah, I mean, that's what I made 27, 20, 29 out of, is actual like cell phone flip phone images. It's kind of funny. And I submitted like a few other images. I think I submitted five in total, for Marisol Vegas. Those three were used. And then I submitted three other aliases that weren't used. And then I submitted one friend who did these like Mickey Mouse, like they all look special needs and like extra deformed and stuff. Those would have been like legendary if those were minted, but those weren't used either. So yeah, out of I think those how many pieces? 25 or so artworks I submitted. Three of them were used in Curio, and yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, you definitely submitted a handful of other pieces, Max. Do you remember anything about them? I remember they were a lot different. They were very different. They were perhaps even kind of a seedy, violent, just a different kind of image. Obviously, if you look at the Curio cards, it's kind of a colorful, fun, kind of a light-hearted set. So I'm not sure we accepted those, but I was curious if you remember anything about them or the
Oh
other
yeah,
options.
yeah, totally. There was one by an alias called Muon Nays that was there's a bunch of like old photos that I like colored over. They definitely looked creepy and dark, really freaky. And yeah, there are definitely art series that wouldn't be for everyone. So probably not suitable for kids and stuff like that. But art should question some things once in a while.
Well, and if you look at the artist cards for Curio cards, we kept it pretty safe. Like Travis was saying, we knew Crypto Graffiti. He was a friend of ours from the meetup. I knew Philippe from the online. He'd done a lot of Mad Bitcoins parodies back in the day. We kind of knew Luis through one of our advisors, Rick Chan, and he'd also come to the San Francisco Bitcoin meetups, which he's got his own incredible story, and I wish he was here. Luis lives in the Philippines, but decided to make his own startup. And part of that was going to San Francisco, sleeping on people's couches, sleeping in basements, wherever they would have him. And one of the things he did is he ended up at the San Francisco Bitcoin meetup. So it was great to have him on there for the crypto pop cards. As we said, Philippe again, and then Robeck talked about his cards. Daniel's cards were submitted to us through the Google form. We just had a normal Google form. You say, what your art was, submit some images or some links. And one of the things we really liked about Daniel's art is that it looked incredibly handmade. If you've seen the pieces, they're line art, pen and paper, ink, a lot of patterns, an incredible amount of time and detail spent in doing them. And for that reason, we didn't think that they were stolen. Our biggest fear, or one of our biggest fears when launching the project, would be that someone would fool us and they would give us some art and we would say, oh, great, let's do it. And we would pay them and all those things. And we would find out later that we'd accidentally stolen someone else's art, which is not something we wanted to do. So we felt Daniel's art was very original. Of course, we knew Max, so Max made art. And then, I don't know anything about the Eclipse card, but it's
Mine is stolen.
Robex could have been stolen. He could have,
Yeah.
hired someone on Fiverr to say, do this art, and fooled us
I
completely.
mean, incredible
We
work.
have no,
It was a
we
really
certainly
good.
had no AI thing you could look stuff up in or any of those
Yeah,
things
this
back
is
in the
pre.
day.
That's another thing too. This is pre AI art, so there's authenticity there. Really incredible work from the Fiverr you found. Um, I what the Daniels thing, it was kind of like a proof of work vibe, right? Like you looked at it and you could see the effort, you could feel the effort, and it's like this is, and it also was demonstrating a different medium, which was very exciting to us. This was pen on paper, um,
And he has
which
he
while
has a whole
Max's
Flickr
was
account,
also
a whole
physical.
Flickr account full of other
Yeah.
photos and other line arts and clear history. We could really, get the good feeling that Daniel was the artist for his works.
Yeah, just I want to mention, yeah, Travis, you were briefly saying it. I think you got cut out, but yeah, Daniel has original pieces, and I had original pieces, and yeah, I've been offered an insane amount of money for those repeatedly, um, and yeah, they're really trippy. You're like, wow, this is like one of the first things like represented on the blockchain, like holy shit, you'd be surprised how few people that really got into Curio cared about that. But it's something that I think will be a good bridge between like academics or someone or some group when they start, having classes about NFTs in like 50 years or something. Those will be pretty interesting to have.
It was fascinating,
Yeah, that was
and
a
one of the things I really liked about the Taschen book is it named what kind of tool the artist used to create their work, and a lot of them were Adobe Photoshop, Robex used some kind of weird drawing program. Max's was pen and
the guy in
pen
Fiverr
and
used it.
paper, all those kind of things, and it was really fascinating how we had this different kind of art on Curio cards, and it was kind of accidental, it just kind of rolled in, different people, different times trying to put this together.
Well, I do remember. I think we gave ourselves a bit more credit. I do remember there was an intentional push to just demonstrate this could be different kinds of things, because one of the big pushbacks we got back then was, "Oh, I can just right click save," and it's kind of amazing how you don't hear that anymore, because people realize the asset is a different thing. But if we could point to there's a thing that exists in the world that felt like kind of a nice counter to some of those arguments. So there was definitely an intentional push to demonstrate as many different kinds of medium as possible as
Well,
well.
and
Yeah.
if you do
So
look at it,
very,
the first 10 cards or so were kind of a clip art series, kind of meant to fund the company and test the project before we put any real art on there. And but then if you get to card 20, it's a full photograph, so we've got photographs, we've got
yeah.
clip art, we've got individual art, we've got handmade art, we've got Max's collage project. Like Travis said, it is a really wide variety of art and art type ideas where we talked about, photographers could use this. They could release NFTs of their photographs, and people could use this for video games. You could have characters and things like
hmm
Robex ideas. And yeah, just a lot of different ideas in these cards.
Yeah, the Robeck. I remember there was talks about like having a card that could represent a game object. But the 1 through 10 is another great example of us trying to figure out what that thing was. Yeah, we went to Fanip and kind of made them to spec. You collaborated with Fanip, and because we didn't know what an NFT was supposed to look like, we just knew that we wanted it to be something different. So yeah, 1 through 10 is all the proof you need that we were really trying to figure it out, because how wildly different those cards are from the later cards. That was kind of like our dry run,
Well, and,
as it
and
were.
if you guys like, and we've told these stories before, but maybe you haven't heard them, if you guys like, we could go through the 1 through 10 cards. As it said been before, with the first card, Apple, we're definitely referencing the biblical birth of Adam and Eve, the birth of man. I took many English
No
classes.
subtlety there.
No, of course not. And they said they had this great thing they taught us. They said whenever there's an apple, like a girl eating an apple in a scene, maybe it's the future, it doesn't matter. That apple always kind of represents the fall of man. So whether you're watching Westworld or you're watching, cowboy movie, whatever it is, the girl starts eating an apple, and you're like, oh, Adam and Eve, fall of man, and we really felt that.
But with that first card, we were agreeing with NFT's strongest critics. This is
Absolutely.
the
I
fall of
think we were
man.
getting on board completely with the as
We were
Dogecoin,
getting way in front of
our
that.
friend Jackson who
We were getting
launched
way in front of
Dogecoin
that.
hates Bitcoin, did Dogecoin to make fun of Bitcoin in the same way the Apple and its
Oh,
kind of destructive nature talks about this kind of opening of the floodgates, because previously there was pretty much rare Pepes and there was Spells of Genesis, and Spells of Genesis was locked up tight. It was like the Onion. They didn't even take submissions. I badgered them for years, I'm sure, on Twitter, saying, "Hey, make a Mad Bitcoins card, or put a reference in, or a hat, or something, or some goggles." I'd get a kick out of that. Never a response. Complete stonewall. Spells of Genesis, rare Pepes, a little more open for the artist side, but it had to be green. It was very monochromatic, a very green artwork. And with Curio cards and with the Apple, one of the things we wanted to say is that there can be any kind of art on these cards, right? They weren't NFTs. We call them digital collectibles or blockchain collectibles, but we said there could be any kind of art on here, classic art, modern art, new art, all those kind of things. So we're saying that with Apple. And then, of course, there's that part in, I think it's one of the like Pirates of the Silicon Valley, Steve Jobs movie. And he's like, Atari is very high in the alphabet and in the phone book. I know no one has a phone book anymore, but you'd look under A and you'd see Atari. And one of the things that Jobs did is he wanted his company to come before Atari. So AP, Apple, comes before AT, Atari. And in the same way, of course, I think a lot of people are huge fans of Steve Jobs and the work he did and everyone did at Apple, making computers for everyone. So we wanted that to be a huge homage. Travis, do you have any
It
more on
shows,
on the Apple Card? I feel like I talked a lot.
but it shows, yeah, it shows how early we were. We were doing phone book references. Um,
Well, you want to come
yeah, no,
first
I think
because
it's
people
exactly, it
will buy
wasn't
the
subtle.
stuff. All right, so we'll move on to nuts and berries. We're talking about, again, basic sustenance here. The story of artwork is that we need food first, and nuts and berries are a great example of that. And as I've said, a reference to this fantastic Talking Head song called Animals. And it's all about animals, and he's kind of paranoid and distrusting of his animals, almost as if he's looking at his dog and saying, you've got it too good there. You sit around and do nothing. You don't need money. And it had this kind of Bitcoin reference where he says over and over again, they say they don't need money. They're living on nuts and berries. And I thought that was funny. So we put that in. And so it does fit certainly in the art story, but it also is a Talking Head song. And the Talking Heads are a fantastic band. I don't know if you've listened to them, but they did a great song called Found a Job. And it's about this couple and they're fighting and they're unhappy and they watch a lot of television. And during the song, they say they started making their own shows and they don't have to watch TV anymore. Now they're happy. And so it has this kind of artistic support. And a lot of their work is very supportive of art and artists and modern art, not just music. And of course, their classic film, Stop Making Sense. Travis, any more on nuts and berries? I think we released apples the first week. Then on the next week, and we're doing these every Tuesday, we do a YouTube show called New Card Tuesday and try to promote them and try to get people interested. Mainly, I think Robeck and Moon, maybe the artist watching, like Finite, probably watch these shows. But Travis, any more on 2 and 3?
I think that we released 1, 2, and 3 together because while the individual things picked were because of the Adam and Eve reference as well as the nuts and berries, there was also the idea that we were going to kind of tell like a story that got more complicated as it went. So Curio collects 3 objects. He uses those objects as an art material to then make 3 pieces of artwork, and you can kind of see that 1, 2, 3 are the collected objects. 4, 5, 6 are what you can make with those objects: paint, clay, ink, and then sculpture, paintings, and books from there. So the only other thing to add was there was sort of that was also we need 3 things. We need 3 small collectible objects.
I also think there's a lot of kind of jokiness and fun to this, where we knew that we were making these essentially collectible signatures, right? If you have the, private key, you can move it around, you can send it to someone, you own the object. And to put essentially, food, perishable items, fruit, nuts, berries on our first card is also kind of joking and mocking, and might not have been the most successful for raising money or selling cards or whatever, but it works. And again, it works with this kind of 1 through 10 story of art that we wanted to tell to kind of launch the company, to test out the software. We didn't want to screw up with, say our friend Crypto Graffiti's cards. We didn't want to make mistakes. So we figured if we make a mistake with, apple or nuts or berries, no one's going to get mad at us, right?
Yeah, and these were announced on. CL, I think you got some reverb on yours. At least I heard a lot of interference when you spoke there.
Sorry. I was saying how we love.
Oh yeah, no, it's a lot of.
Yeah, it
It's a
seems
lot
like
of
an
echo.
epic train station type problem going on there. Maybe type it into the chat or something. Sorry about
Come
that.
back to the
That's too
station.
bad.
But hopefully
That's too bad.
we'll get her
I
question
would want to hear CL's.
another way somehow. Would be great. But so moving on, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, CL released a great video
Mhm.
about 1 through 10 early on in the rediscovery that goes through a lot of this.
Yeah, it's excellent. It's really
CL.
and it's fun to watch because you can see her
Crypto
speculate
Liquor.
on these ideas, and there's no official story. There's no 100% thing to find. But yeah, you just speculate and you make up your own story as well, which I think is important on these. So coming up next, according to the like Travis says, the Curio DAO files that I've read and Crypto Lurkers videos and others, I make a mistake and I put clay before paint because apparently we're counting the cave paintings as the invention of paint. But anyway, we're talking about the basic building blocks of art here. So we picked these specifically to match up with the next set. So clay matches with sculpture, of course, The Thinker by Rodin. Paint matches up with the Leonardo da Vinci, the Mona Lisa, which was really fun to have the first Mona Lisa on the blockchain, and that was not really intentional, but we did it. I also like the descriptions they talk about the Rodin piece, how it was three-dimensional, and the way that Philippe has styled the card with kind of the tie-dye explosion behind the thinker. I like that too. But yeah, building blocks of art, and then of course ink leading to the books, and with the rose on top. I think Philippe has some other versions of the books, maybe different authors or no authors, and we worked on that. And then we get to the future, card 10, which is all about the future of art and is much more optimistic, I would say, Travis, than maybe the apple. If the apple is, beware those who enter here, or something like that, the 10 card is the future, and it's happy and it's animated. So, Travis, what do you think about these cards of the breaking pieces of art, and then examples of art, and then the future?
Yeah, 10 was my favorite card out of the series. I know everyone loves Apple, but 10 was sort of like, okay, this is the point of the story, right? Like, we're telling a story here, and the idea is we're trying to launch something. We're trying to start on this new path together. We don't really know what to do with this. We don't want to be the ones who know and decide what to do with this. We want artists to show up and try it out. And we released this project. We announced it on the Bitcoin Talk forums. I mean, like, that was the only place that really existed for this thing at the time. There wasn't crypto Twitter. So it was a very much unproven ground and an unproven path. And like, here's the path. We're trying to figure this out. So that ambiguity, but that positive look, is what I really loved about the number 10 card.
Well, and these were ERC20 tokens, as Travis has mentioned there. Mainly people use them to kind of unofficially sell stock in their company. And if you had a successful company, or if you bought early, maybe you could sell that, stock in quotation marks later on the open market for more money. So when we crafted these and created them technically on the computer, it was really a modified ERC20 token, and we were worried that people would maybe think this was a company or pieces of the company or intended to be stock, and we certainly never intended them to be stock or represent the company. It was always this collectible idea, and that's one of the reasons we felt we had such a hard time getting people into it, is that you'd get rich if these were valuable collectibles. You wouldn't necessarily, if the company succeeded or didn't succeed, wasn't really linked to the collectibles. They weren't going to have a symbol or a ticker where the price would go up and down.
Yeah, that was a lot of confusion on the forums around that idea. They thought this is some kind of ICO. These were going to represent shares of something, or there'd be some sort of future development. And it was like, we've made collectibles. You've bought a collectible. Congratulations. That's the entire extent of this relationship. Artists are going to make their own collectibles, and well, I mean, the history of what happened speaks for itself. Outside of Moon and Roback, not a lot of people understood what it was we were trying to accomplish. The artists, I'd say, not. So obviously, Moon and Roback are the classic example of what we say of our first fans. But if you think about it, the first fan is Philippe and Crypto Graffiti, and all the artists were the first fans. We had no trouble explaining to artists what we were trying to create.
I think that you're going to start another argument about firsts if you go down that train of thought. I'll claim.
All my point is, it wasn't just the people buying the cards; the people creating the cards were also part of that relationship, and they understood what it was that Curio Cards was trying to be, even if we had a hard time explaining to collectors.
And you have to understand the ecosystem at this point. There was no ecosystem. So if you had bought a Curio card for about $1 in Ethereum, or if you got some of the sweet early ones, no one talks about this, but we had different vending machines where we'd put some discount cards in there. I think they were 10 cents or 30 cents or something, and you could get a sale on the first ones. But if you had bought those and you say to yourself, well, I'm dissatisfied with this, I want my dollar back, there was no marketplace where you could list these. There was this thing called Ether Delta, and it was, pretty good and people were working on it, but you kind of had to leave your computer on 24/7 with Ether Delta running with your cards in there, and then your partner to match up with would have to do the same, and then you'd have to agree on a price, and then maybe you could get your dollar back for the card. So a lot of people bought these and were like, what can I do with this? And our main application at the time, I think it was Moon who built this, but if I mess it up, I'm sorry, but it was like gallery.curiocards.com or something. And basically you could put your Ethereum address in and it would show you the cards that had in your account. And that's kind of what our cards did. Like after you bought them, you could refresh your gallery page and it would show that now you have a card number 6. And that was pretty much it. That was what you could do with them. There was, Pepe cards were on their own system on Counterparty. They also had problems buying and selling Spells of Genesis as well. And it's funny, I feel terrible. I never bought any of these cards because it was so difficult to buy and sell, and because it was difficult to enter and to exit. And what you did with them, like after you bought them, you just kind of owned these signatures, and that was it. So.
If my voice is normal now, I think Daniel had his hand raised.
Yeah, hey guys.
Hey Daniel, do you have a question?
Hey.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just wanted to say, pretty big collector, huge fan, and just hearing kind of the journey from, literally the artists, you guys who put this all together, and kind of like it wasn't, there was no Google search to figure out what you're doing, and it just kind of speaks to the fact that this is invention and novelty, and then following through till the auction of the collection on both Christie's and Sotheby's. Just kind of, Curio for me, why I collect is it's like a beacon, and especially hearing the stories from the artists themselves is just kind of awe-inspiring, and it's kind of like the beacon of how to do NFT collections and kind of how to navigate invention and novelty. So, happy anniversary, and thanks a lot, guys, for paving the way for NFTs. I think the accolades speak for themselves, and I think they'll just keep rolling in. So, big shout out. Thanks a lot, and let's keep going.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And I know that you were there at a lot of the early Bitcoin meetups
Yeah.
in San Francisco. And the ideas back then,
Yeah.
what was so amazing about it is one of our advisors was our good friend Ryan Singer. And I love Ryan, but I think all of his ideas are 5 years too early. And that might have rubbed off on us a little bit at the time.
This is everything, right? Because my Curio is so, the thing is, from those days, people were watching what other people were doing. So you can't say that all of your efforts rubbed off on the world. It's undeniable. And that's why I was saying, like, it's inspiring. That's why I collect, and I think it's very relevant. And the fact that there's this band of mates who, even after many years are just continuing to herald it, and seeing the process definitely is an inspiration to like do more and evolve, and definitely inspire other people to be involved in crypto. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think
I really
it's about
appreciate hearing that. I mean, that was, yeah.
about getting involved and going to meetups and just learning new people and meeting people. Like I was saying with Ryan Singer, one of his projects back then was blockchain health, and he was going to basically blockchain health records. And it's a great idea, and a lot of people are working on versions of that today. But he was one of the first. I think he went on to work on this great project with Bram Cohen, who invented BitTorrent, and it was a cleaner version of Bitcoin, kind of a clean coin. I forget the name right now, but yeah, it was great to be ahead and just to have all these
That one was
ideas.
Chia.
Chia, that was it.
They were doing proof of space, just that, again, an alternative to proof of work, which Ethereum ended up going off of as well. Yeah, and I remember Daniel back the meetup groups back then.
What's up, Travis?
And we were saying about how, yeah, it's really good to hear from you. Talk some more. The thing about rubbing off, I mean, yeah, you can see that in Curio cards being mentioned in ERC 721. Everyone was seeing what was going on.
Well, I love the mention too. It's that these new cards will not be like Curio cards.
Yeah,
It's very interesting that as
yeah,
everyone got obsessed with non-fungible tokens, Curio cards, and I don't think this was intentional. We had a lot of different specifications that we gave to Rhett and that we talked about as groups. But for whatever reason, when he sat down to program it, he didn't include version numbers. So if you have a Curio card number one in Apple, that apple, we can't say that that's apple number one or apple number 100. And because of this, the apples are actually fungible with each other. So what this has created, in my opinion, is this incredible market of people trading apples, and no one can say my apple is the best because it was the first off the printing press, because of the way it was coded. And maybe there's a way to break this in the code or to roll them back, but for as far as I know now, all apples are fungible with all other apples. So you can't really brag
yeah.
over anyone. And I think this has led to a real market, kind of a stock market around curio cards.
Yeah, I wouldn't change it. There is no way to change it, and I wouldn't because, as you say, the liquidity. If every single apple is traded individually, I mean, imagine the OpenSea page on that. There'd be 20 something thousand listings. But instead, it's just like you have this nice pool of apples, you have this nice pool of 13, 16, etc. Because the idea was they would be prints, and I know prints are generally are numbered, but when you're dealing with trying to sell these things online, it certainly is a heck of a lot easier this way.
And I think that is one of the problems when you try to explain these to people with NFTs. They want them to be unique, like a CryptoPunk, where you're the only one who owns Apple. But these are a lot more like baseball cards, where a lot of people have Ken Griffey, a lot of people have Jose Canseco. Maybe you have 10 of them,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I have one. But then this
Yeah.
leads to that collecting
Pikachu cards
idea.
don't have a number on them.
Exactly, and
Yeah,
the
like
building
you
a
don't.
set. Yeah.
This was, yeah, this was not a surprise. It wasn't a mistake. I mean, there were
I
many
was
different
the
ways of
same
doing
way.
this, and it certainly felt like a Pokemon or a baseball card. You want to be able to like trade them with friends. Hey, I'll trade two number 10s for one of your number ones. Um, that mentality fits really well for a baseball card, a Pokemon card, that kind of thing.
Of course, none of the people
And
who
what
bought
else?
baseball cards knew anything about Ethereum or how to use my Ether wallet or how to save their private keys. And certainly we couldn't reach them at the time. But Travis, do you want to keep going through the cards here a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. After the 10, we get into the artist series. So the first three there, Crypto Graffiti's cards. I don't believe he's here to speak for them. Scrolling really fast. Nope. So I'll just say real briefly. These were he would make these stickers, these stickers, and he'd put them on ATMs outside of banks. And he was kind of like a guerrilla artwork kind of thing. So he presented some of this work as well at the art show that we'd done the year before. So it was just an obvious choice. I mean, we asked him which ones you wanted to do. Obviously, we didn't pick them, and these were the three that he did as kind of a series. And you can buy these stickers on his. If you go to Crypto Graffiti's website and go to his store, he sells sticker packs that has these three stickers as well as a bunch of other parodies of other banks and financial institutes. So if you like those cards, I definitely recommend checking out his store.
Well, and sure, everyone regrets not buying Bitcoin early. But I have a unique story where I regret not buying Bitcoin art early. Because, like Travis has said, we're friends with Crypto Graffiti. He's a great guy. And for a little while there, he had kind of a pop up art studio right there on Market Street out of DG 919, one of the startup accelerators. And I saw him when he was working on the piece that we use as our background at the World Crypto Network. It's kind of a credit card world piece. I think it got bought, like a lot of his pieces, by Kraken. And he was working on the mining piece and several other pieces. And I think they were quite expensive at the time, like $2,000 to $5,000, which is a lot of money. But I'm sure they're worth more now. And they're original ones of ones. And they were all made, like I say, in this unique style where he would cut up credit cards, or later ones he used bank boxes or old bank notes or El Salvadorian currency or whatever. He has a wide variety of great materials that he uses. And it was really neat to see, your friend working on this stuff, and for it to be so interesting and so layered to it, where he would use the credit card to criticize the credit cards, that kind of thing. All right. If there aren't any questions or anything, we'll just keep going. The next ones up are some of the Philippe series again. We let our friend Philippe do the 1 through 10 series, but we wanted him to be recognized as an artist on his own. And of course, we worked with him a lot on the Mad Bitcoins parodies and other things. And by work with, it was like I would be like, hey, you should do one like this movie Moon, or you should do one like 2001, or I've got a Mad tour coming up. It would be neat if you put my head on Chevy Chase in the movie Vacation or something like that. And Philippe had been doing parody logos and things for a while. His early work was stuff like hockey teams and other things that I'm not sure it caught on. But then he started doing the Mad Bitcoins parodies, and then eventually he got into these Bitcoin parodies, where, as you can see here, he's parodied Coca-Cola, Wendy's, and Heineken, each into a kind of a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency thing. And it's really funny at this point. They've said they call this the Bitcoin propaganda series of Curio cards. And what's so great is we were just completely diehard Bitcoin people. And even though we technically, for technical reasons, had decided to go with Ethereum, we still weren't too crazy about it. And we wanted everyone to know that we were serious Bitcoin people. And even though we're using this Ethereum thing to get our cards out there, we're still hardcore Bitcoiners. So you can see as pretty much 11 through 20, all Bitcoin propaganda, Bitcoin support things. Travis, there's any more you'd like to say about the Philippe parody cards?
I'm holding in my hand right now Philippe's book, World War B, which I believe is on Amazon even. If not, you can certainly get it on Philippe's webpage. If you're a fan of Philippe's artwork, it's a really cool book. This one focuses entirely on like World War II propaganda that he redid into Bitcoin propaganda. So I'm flipping through it right now. These cards are not going to be, this the artwork on these cards is not in the book, so you can see all the kind of other work that he's done. So yeah, similar to go on Crypto Graffitis and buy stickers. You can also go on Philippe's website and pick up World War B, which will have a ton more of his artwork.
And it was really neat. The first Philippe parody that he did of Mad Bitcoins was the classic "I want you to join the army," the flag piece of Uncle Sam. But of course, it's Uncle Mad Bitcoins. And he says, "I want you to buy Bitcoin." And I've often wondered if Philippe is really a real person, or if it's like Tyler Durden in Fight Club. And when I go to sleep, I wake up and become Philippe and make all these photoshops in my sleep. Because especially the World War II propaganda pieces, if I had the skills and the time, that's one of the things I would have loved to have done to support Bitcoin. And I have several of Philippe's pieces here on the wall. They're a little dated. Are you saving for the children? Save for their future. Show them how to make a Bitcoin paper wallet. And then we've got the first they fight you, then they ignore you, then you win piece as well. It's a Navy parody. But I've always loved the World War II propaganda pieces from the Americans and all the others as well, but they're just so completely one-sided. And I love to see them transformed into Bitcoin works. I definitely recommend Philippe's book, World War B. And like you said, Travis, it's print on demand on Amazon. So just get out there and pick it up. You'll be supporting him directly.
Next up, we have CryptoPop, his series of cards, and you'll notice that these are always in groups of 3, because when we did the artist release, they did groups of 3, but that math doesn't quite work. So obviously, card 10 and card 30 and card 20 were all released as singles. But yeah, the next group of 3, 17, 18, and 19, CryptoPop, met him through the meetup event, met him through Rick, and you can kind of see a theme here up to this point. We always have the story, Curio story, and experimenting with NFTs but then there's a lot of Bitcoin propaganda. And we were trying to not be like Rare Pepe, where it's only the frog, right? We didn't want to be only that either. So even though this is still actually a lot of Bitcoin propaganda, it was the cartoon nature of it. It was a different art style than just like a parody art style. It was like these were original pieces entirely. And this also has the famed 17 card, which says UASF on it, which was all about the user-activated soft fork. And this was sort of the fight for Bitcoin's soul around big or small blocks. There's a whole story to it. The short version is people were wanting to fork Bitcoin into 2 projects at the time. And we ended up accidentally deploying out these 3 twice. Very fitting.
And it was great. Luis was getting pretty well known through the time. He was doing kind of Bitcoin graphics. Every time Bitcoin would break like $1,000 or $2,000, he would make a new crypto pop piece. Maybe the Kool-Aid guy busting through a wall, and then it would say 2,000 or 3,000. And one of these was the UASF piece. It's great to hear Luis talk. It's unfortunate he's not here, but he's done a lot of great speeches on YouTube and these kind of things. He's kind of an international flair to Luis. He's actually from the Philippines, and for a while there, I think during 2021, he was the Philippines' #1 selling artist. And he did this whole video where he compared the volume on Curio cards with the volume of the rest of the Philippine art market, everything, paintings, sketches, sculpture, all that kind of thing. And the NFT volume of money just for Curio cards that year was more than the entire Filipino art market. So it's pretty amazing that Luis was included and that we were able to share our success with him. And one of the really neat things about Luis's success is much like Robeck, who when he became successful, he started collecting other people's pieces and sharing the money with artists. Luis set up kind of a foundation and a group where he teaches artists how to become digital artists and especially how to make a little bit of money with it, which is a big thing in the Philippines as a developing country. For a while, they were doing Axie Infinity, and I think a lot of people were able to bring home, significant money thanks to NFTs, thanks to these ideas, thanks to collectibles. I don't know that it worked out well in the end for Axie Infinity, but it was a really neat story. And Luis is still doing a lot of Bitcoin related videos, releasing them almost every day. I see him all the time on Facebook. So definitely check out his work.
I also, just really quick, Tom, want to mention that he also is the first Filipino artist to go to Christie's.
Indeed. And we underestimate how kind of important to the normal art world Christie's and Sotheby's are. Like for us, I mean, if I could get onto Boing Boing or Slashdot, that's pretty much what I'm looking for. But for everyone else, it's amazing to be included in Christie's and Sotheby's. Usually, I've talked to Max about this a bunch. We pretty much agree that most artists are dead by the time they're in Christie's and Sotheby's. And it's amazing to be alive and to have these stories. And it's a big deal for the Philippines, most definitely.
Congratulations to all the Curio artists for bucking the trend and living long enough to see your artwork at Christie's. We had done that art show the year before, and it had that problem of people that we knew in San Francisco because we hosted the San Francisco Bitcoin Meetup event. Then we worked with the Theory Meetup group as well, but it was local, and we had that concern of somebody just passing off someone else's artwork for their own. So we kind of needed to have that really confident validation at the time, because there weren't open marketplaces like OpenSea that could sort that out. So when he showed up at the meetup event, we could kind of have that handshake moment of saying like, this is a real person, this is the stuff he's made. And it was really important to us that it wasn't just San Francisco artists, that, the whole point of doing this online was that anyone, anywhere in the world could contribute. That's the whole point of Ethereum. So, really an amazing opportunity to connect with Luis, an incredible artist.
And I agree that meeting people is hard and networking is hard, going to meetups is hard, all these things, being physically present in a location is hard even these days. But it makes a difference. You have to go out there and chase it if you want these things. And for Luis to be there and for us to meet him, even if he had to sleep in a basement with roaches in somebody's house in San Francisco, it turns out to be very worth it. You show up and you become a part of it. When I showed up to the San Francisco Bitcoin meetup, it was run by our friends Paige and Isabel. And, I volunteered by just setting up chairs, by being involved, by showing up early, by staying late,
Same thing.
setting up the
just
drinks, whatever
stacking
it was.
chairs. That's how I got started as well. Just stacking chairs.
Absolutely. And you don't have to be crazy technical to be polite and stack chairs or pour some drinks or help someone out. And there's a lot of meetups like this that you can join in, or even like Robeck did, join a virtual meetup. He joined our Telegram group and we had this, feeling for him as a person. And so it was easy to include his works here at 21, 22, and 23. But first, a little bit about card number 20. Which, as they've said online, was kind of an attempt at a Patreon or a support project for Mad Bitcoins. And as you guys know, in 2013, I started making YouTube videos as Mad Bitcoins. I wanted them to be light and fun and funny, but also to support people who were into Bitcoin. We didn't have anybody that was really supporting us and saying, this Bitcoin's a good idea. Not only is it such a good idea, we're going to, do 3 news stories a day about it. And sometimes the news stories weren't that big. It was like a cafe in Budapest accepts Bitcoin, and I get all excited, because anybody accepting it is great. But it wasn't like now where we have giant hedge funds like BlackRock and Morgan Stanley and other people getting into Bitcoin. So we put out the number 20 card, and we intended to raise money. Maybe I could buy a new camera or get an airplane ticket somewhere, that kind of thing. Much like many of the other cards, it didn't sell. Even though Mad Bitcoins does have some fans, most didn't want to cross over and learn how to use Ethereum to get this Mad Bitcoins card. Some did and wrote me angry messages. I had to learn Ethereum to get your card. I hate you, you bastard. I'm not sure if they held those cards and made a little money back in the day, but if they held onto their keys. But yes, it was there was a lot of negativity around producing these cards. I know our friend Theo from the Rare Pepe project. I love Theo. But he was very mad about Curio cards. He basically kind of said there should only be Rare Pepes in this world. And I like Rare Pepes. I think a lot of them are really well done and inventive. And certainly my friend Zed does some incredible Rare Pepes like the Warhol one. And there's the Kurt Cobain one where he's wearing a Mad Bitcoins t-shirt. I love that one. But I thought there should be artwork that wasn't green. And just in general, you could make whatever you want on the artwork. It doesn't have to follow a pattern of green people. But yeah, that was about it for number 20. Travis, do you have anything else on Mad Bitcoin's card or the idea of a Patreon?
No, you covered it. I mean, we wanted to show, hey, the tokens can be art, but hey, also the tokens can be a way of connecting with artists. We needed a artist's permission, and hey, there's an artist on the team. So it worked out perfect. I would just, unrelated before we carry on, because I had noticed we have hit the hour mark and or a little bit over. I'm of course happy to stay, but just in case other people don't, I wanted to call out, check out one of the pinned tweets or go on Curio Card's Twitter. Etheread is doing a really cool project where he has gotten these cards made physically, as like a physical deck of cards you can get and you can buy. So if you love the cards and you want to grab a physical deck, click on that link, because there is a Kickstarter, because he needs a certain amount of commitment in order to do the print. These things work. You need to have a certain number of them to do a run. So we'll mention it again at the end. But if you're here, just check out the Kickstarter. And I mean, I think it's like really affordable too. I think it's like $70 or something for a deck of cards. That's off my top of my memory. So sorry if that price is wrong.
Yeah, I'm actually not really making much money on it. It was a passion project. It's fun to, I've got the sample. It's fun to hold them in your hands. And I thought, well, if I made it and I went through all that trouble, I'll share it with the community. So there's a little video on the Kickstarter, and that's why I used Kickstarter, is really just to kind of formalize my thoughts and my work on it and present it to the community in a little bit sharper way than just some links in Discord. So anybody who does want one of these, if we don't hit our backing goal, I can still get the order out there even without that. So I just had to pick a number. So I picked 31 because it's a Curio number. So if we can get 31 of these decks, then we can do it through Kickstarter. Otherwise, I'm in Discord. We can work through those channels, and I'll get you a deck. So I had to go with meme pricing. So $69, and but I mean, I'm happy to talk about the cards and for any questions. But yeah, please check them out. Just take a look. It's kind of my way to say thank you to the community for all the education and sharing. When I first learned about Curio cards in 2021, it was the first. Well, I actually learned about NFTs in March, and I got something that cost me like $30 in gas, and I was like, oh, it's not ready yet. So set it back on the table. Missed everything that spring and summer until I heard about the Curio cards selling at auction, and that's when I was finally like, you know what? I have learned about cryptocurrencies since 2013, sat on the sidelines, always missed. So this time I'm jumping in. So jumped into the Discord and got involved and made a lot of really great friends, through the Curio Cards Discord and others. Like I see, looks like he's dropped. But yeah, I've had some friends come in and out of this, which has been fun to see. So yeah, this is sort of a thank you to the community and just sharing this passion project that's kind of been a work in progress for over a year for me. So yeah, enjoy it.
I really
Yeah,
enjoyed
huge
your
thanks. I'm grabbing my deck.
yeah, I enjoyed your video about
I'm
it.
grabbing my deck right now. I've always wanted a physical deck, so this is excellent. Thank you so much.
And I
Just
definitely
ordered.
agree with everyone on the Kickstarter thing. We have to basically get 31 people to agree to this project. So hopefully, if you're out there and you're on the fence, you'll agree and you'll buy the project, and that support will get it done because we have to reach that threshold. Otherwise, it all rolls back.
There's a really good marketing video that he made for the promotion. So if you could just click to the link and watch the video that he made, and he shows you the process of how he made it all. Even learned Blender, which is like a 3D graphic animation sculpting program to like learn how to make these, and he made an AR component as well, which is really cool to see. So yeah, I think we're at like 7 if not 10 backings already, so we just need like 20 more. So yeah, but it's a really cool project, and he put so much effort into it. Super creative, fun project that like went over a year, and yeah, it was really great to support it and see it carried through. So great job with your ad.
Thank you, Crypto Lurker. Really appreciate it. And I appreciate all the support from you and others in the Discord, yourself and OC Ripley and Constantine and all the others that I've bounced ideas off of. And then, those of you that I approached directly to have permission to do this one-time run of the physical version of the cards that you have. I really appreciate that. So it's what makes this community special is the ability to iterate on some of these things and do something you like and be able to work with everyone who's still involved. So really neat. And just really appreciate all that support.
Now, I don't want to add controversy, but I do have to ask, did you include the crypto graffiti cards?
This was talked about at length, actually. And they are currently ready to be printed, but I think I'm actually going to change my mind on that and just print the borders. It feels like it's more honorable to where the project's at now. I don't know. What do you guys think?
It would be nice if he would speak publicly on this. Maybe hit him up on Twitter, just send him a nice message. Because if he would go either way, if he supports it or doesn't support it, I would just prefer him to say it rather than have this non-response thing. Because if he didn't respond to Tashin or he wasn't willing to create a legal identity, he could still make his choice, especially for a project like this. I'd of course like to see him included, but you got to make your own decision on that.
Yeah, the kind of general thing, and again, I can't speak for him, has been that he's fine with us, Curio, he's in the cards, right? We try not to use his images and marketing materials promotionally. We don't. So as long as you're not showing the cards on like the sales page, but actually including them though, yeah, it depends on if you just want to do the whole like no permission thing, or if you would want to get his sign off. But even if he does say yes to being in the cards, probably still a good idea not to try to sell the cards using his art because, again, he doesn't like the commoditization.
But if we go back to
Makes sense.
the
I love
cards
it.
here, thanks again, Aether. I love the cards, man. They're really cool.
Yeah. And just real quick also, like along that theme, huge shout out to, we've had some really amazing people in the community who put a lot of work into this project over the years. Obviously Etheread, he's got a full merch store as well as just the cards. I think it's like merch.curio.cards. If I'm wrong on that, someone can correct me. There's, obviously Crypto Lurker, who's here right now co-hosting, and Sven, amazing moderators in our community. Constantine is also in here. He's done some really great stuff, just organizing Curio DAO projects together. OC Ripley. Because we have like the remix site, we have the merch store, we have everything the Curio DAO has done for the social media and the brand awareness and writing all those blog posts, and it's just been an incredible group of people just showing up and helping out because they like the cards, and I just wanted to say thank.
It's definitely cool to see things like remix.curio.cards where you can see all the different remixes that people have made of the cards. There's some really inventive ones out there. And some of those are ones of ones. So if you get that, you own the only one. But like we were saying, going back to the cards, number 20, of course, a Photoshop by Philippe, the James Bond character Daniel Craig from the movie Skyfall, with the fantastic Mad Bitcoins hat and head upon them. And I was trying to think of stories, things that we haven't told here, to make it really interesting for you guys. And one of the things I don't think we've ever talked about, and I'm probably going to screw up the guy's name, but Travis, do you remember our friend? I think he was called Tyler, and he had a sick dog at the time. And there was some discussion where we were going to do a fundraiser for the dog, where we would have printed a Curio card, a special one with a picture of the dog, and all the funds that we raised, which sadly wouldn't have been very much, but we would have given them to the dog to get the dog some surgery. But then the dog recovered. I was wondering, Travis, do you remember that story? That little piece?
Oh, definitely. More than that, the card was made. The artwork was actually created. If I the dog had like a funny name. It was like Bumbles, or it had like a B word, kind of like a bumbly kind of name. They had a spinal injury, and the card was ready to go. And it was like, hey, cool, we can demonstrate this as a charitable thing, which it actually should be mentioned. Cards 14, 15, and 16, Philippe's cards, those were charity cards as well. He donated all the proceeds from those cards to I believe it was a homelessness charity that accepted crypto. But we had this idea, well, what if the card itself was also a fundraiser, and all the money went to help the dog? And then unfortunately, really sad, the dog got better. And we debated doing it anyway and have the money go to just like a general dog shelter or dog. But it was like the card art was super cute, and it was really focused on the dog themselves. It was like a drawing of them in like a little sweater vest. This art exists somewhere. Maybe one day we'll reveal that. I have it on an old computer or something, I'm sure. But yeah, unfortunately, the dog got better.
Yeah, we really wanted to do it. We thought it was a good idea. We, of course, love dogs, want to raise money for them. We want to help out our friends, that kind of thing. But I don't think it ever came to fruition. So it would be neat to see that.
Yeah, it was
artwork,
ready to
yeah.
go. The card was fully made. It was super cute. It was a hand-drawn artwork.
Well,
It actually is kind of very similar to the next three cards, Robex cards, and that it was that more like hand-drawn anime on a computer style. Also, the dubious honor here, or the honor of 20 and 21 back-to-back Mad Bitcoins cards.
that's right. And 20 is a good number, but 21's also the Satoshi number, the number of Bitcoins. Very cool to be included, and also a little Vegas reference. It's got the blackjack in there, of course. But it was great to be included. And like Robeck said earlier, he kind of, I don't know, I mean, he kind of bribed us here as creators. These cards roll in, and they've got very recognizable our faces on them. My face, Travis's face, and Rhett's face. And we just thought they were great. As it's been said, the Travis card number 22 has the number on the other side. There's a lot of these little tricks that we were able to put in where we ourselves as collectors value anything that's different. So when you have a misprint, or you have a card with a bad word on it or something like that, it becomes more valuable. And in that way, the Bard with 22 on the other side, we wondered if that would become more valuable. And these were also the first cards where... Go ahead, Travis. Sorry.
He made us look good.
Absolutely, especially Rhett. Look at those muscles. My goodness.
My God.
And the wizard
Well,
looks
the
very worldly and
Christie's,
knowledgeable, and the bard is rocking out there. They're all very positive
yeah.
portrayals.
The write-up that Christie's did, we have like Christie's wasn't just an auction. They had one of their art people write up like a professional giant multi-paragraph like lore piece about the entire collection, the same way you'd write up for any classic piece of artwork. And I always remember the line for Rhett's, winking with wanton bravado.
Hilarious. And the Robeck cards are also important here because we started limiting the number of cards. Before we'd done 2,000, maybe 10,000, maybe 100,000 for the first cards, until Rhett put that script in that burnt them. And later on, they burnt all the leftover cards. But with these, we went down, I think, what is it, Travis? 300, 200, 100 at this point for these cards?
Yeah, there was some limiting that happened before. So most of them capped out around 2,000, but we did start doing like 500 for the ones previous. But you're right in that there was a unique limiting thing happening with these three. I'm on the website right now, so I have the benefit of just clicking on it and seeing the numbers, not having to try to remember. What Robeck did, and obviously Robeck is here, so we can speak to this, was that it wasn't just that they're all limited; it's that they have a different supply. So while there's 500, 20 and 22, 21s and 22s, there's only 250 of the 23s, and that was sort of like, hey, not everyone can have one of each. If you want to have one of each, only half the people can have one of each. Robeck, did you want to jump in?
Sure. I mean, I did it like I think originally you guys were like, "Why are you doing this?" But it kind of plays with that whole collectible card thing where, um, you get the foil card or whatever, and there's less of them. It's rare, and so I mean, you can't directly mimic that from a direct card minting setup, but from like a set series thing, you can kind of do it. And since Rhett's was the quote animated one, uh, yeah, it just seemed like a cool idea to kind of carry in. Um, yeah, I mean that's basically it on the supply side.
When you inspired the later pieces, because then Daniel also had each card having a different supply. I believe Max as well. Yeah, that became immediately the way to do it.
Yeah, because I'm a genius, and it happens like that.
I also think
This is the
it's fun
first
because you can
NFT
see,
collection with Robeck in it.
except for the ones he made in 1997. But I think it's also nice the way you can see our ideas get smaller here. So for cards 1 through 10, we were going to mint 100,000 of each card, and we were going to sell them for $1 a piece. And 10 cards, 100,000, that's $1 million. We could have funded our startup. We could have paid myself, Travis, and Rhett to work on the project, and everything would have been golden. But as you can see,
A
the
huge,
card numbers,
epic 10-card
oh,
story.
100,000 easy, because all the ICOs were making millions, right? And we had the same tokens. We had the ERC20 tokens that you were buying from the ICOs. And ours, in our opinion, were even better because we'd attached an image to them. We had a story. They were limited, all of those things.
And we couldn't rug you. There was no promise of future work. You got your token. You have your whole token. Here you go.
But as Robeck said, that got much more limited when we did the 500 of the wizard card because now there could only be 500 sets. So we went with something like baseball cards where there are, hundreds and thousands of them and everyone all over the country has baseball cards to something a lot smaller where maybe our crew in San Francisco could have some of the 500, but not much more than that.
I recently checked out Magic the Gathering. So alpha and beta card sets only had 1,000 of each rare, but there were 1 million cards. So it
Yeah, so
actually
I
makes
mean,
perfect sense to have rare cards, uncommon
I mean,
cards, and to have such a limited supply.
Magic was a huge inspiration for the card supply kind of thing, and also, if you have my cards, you can sack them and gain 3 mana. Um,
Lit.
so that's pretty awesome.
But moving on to the 24, 25, and 26 card, the Daniel Friedman cards, the supply gets even more limited because when we said to Daniel, how many cards do you want to do? He said 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, and 1, 1, 1. And when you get to that 26 card, we really start to limit the number of people who can have a full set of Curio cards. And that's why I think Curio cards are so interesting. And if there is a second round to NFTs, Curio cards, I hope, will be one of the ones that everyone discovers and really enjoys collecting because it is very difficult to collect this set. Daryl Morey's done it. Gary V's done it. A couple of other people have done it. But to get that 26
One of
card,
the co-founders of Ethereum, he bought the Christie's set.
that's the easy way, not collecting it one at a time, buying the full set
Yeah,
at
just
a
go to just
reputable
give
market,
Christie's
with the
a
top hat and everything. But this 26
yeah.
card,
Other
it
people
gets
they
even
clawed
worse
their set one at a time.
because they had that other wrapper, and I don't have the exact number, but I think there's 3 or maybe 6 of them stuck in that wrapper. And so there could really only
Yeah,
be
they're
like around 100 or 106 sets or so, some number like that.
yeah, and also
I mean, I think it's
what
even less
Daniel.
because my cards are in that zombie wallet, and there's only like 50, 60 of them that are in circulating supply.
Yeah, I think there's only
are
like
in circulation.
45 barred cards that are. So one of our people in the chat right here, uh, sorry, I've actually never had to say your name out loud. Shadukudai. I'm probably saying that wrong. Made it a really great website called, was it Curio Supply? I'm trying to remember.
I think it has an XYZ at the end or
XYZ.
something weird. But it is great to see the supply of the different cards and what's
I'm gonna
left.
invite you up to speak, and you can let us know.
Like Robeck was saying, somebody rolled in, and I think this was even before our new card Tuesday, because we would Rhett would make the contracts maybe the night before or the day before, so we could make sure they were good, and then we would announce the cards on New Card Tuesday on our show. But that wasn't really the real announcement. If you were watching the contract, you could just buy them when you wanted to, and when we showed up, most of those cards were already gone. And for the longest time, I thought it was our advisor, Rick, or maybe somebody that we knew. But we have no idea who has all those cards. And like Robeck said, it's very limited card supply on 24, 20, on 21, 22, and 23, despite
Now,
the
I'm on the
actual
website
cards being
now.
different. Yeah.
I'm on the website now. It's ccsupply.xyz. It's like Curio cards, just the initial CC Supply. And there are only, in terms of active supply, so these are cards that haven't been, no one's touched them since it happened, right? So they might just be lost wallets. 35 wizard cards, 42 barbarian cards, 35 barbarian cards, 30. I think 35 is the smallest number I'm seeing here. So in theory, there may not even be possible to have more than 35 full sets ever.
And that's a lot less than the 10,000 CryptoPunks, in case you're comparing the numbers there.
Yeah, so you should go to buy like my art that's available on primary or secondary right now, because I'm kind of a big deal because my cards are like super rare.
Super rare, super rare.
A really big deal. Really big deal.
Yeah, I mean,
there was one thing
the
I did want
story-
to say that I'm not sure if the guy who got all the cards of mine sniped them. I used to do sniping though. So maybe it was me who sniped the first few in that, because I remember like I bought like 15 of each or something like that before the contracts deployed. But maybe he did. I don't remember exactly.
Well, the wallet holding those has not moved at all since they grabbed them. So maybe one day, Robeck, you'll tell us the story of how you took care of this individual to keep your cards rare.
No, Adam, I did not buy them all. They are not I do not have them. I know that's your question.
You can keep denying it, Robeck, but we all know the truth deep down.
I don't own them. I have used the same wallet for the past 7.5 years. I don't do that.
I wanted to add one interesting thing with Daniel. He did the 333-222-111. And funny enough, when I was maybe interviewing, I can't remember if it was a podcast or a Spaces, but it clicked to him as we were talking that added up to 666. And he was almost like stunned about that, which I thought was like just hilarious. And then, but I told him it had I think it was 5 cards got locked in that bad contract. And I told him, like, I think 5 cards are locked, though, permanently locked and never going to be seen again. And that made him very happy that it was no longer
saving us from the rapture.
Yes, exactly. So I thought
apocalypse
that was pretty cool.
averted.
Well, it is funny when you meet these random people on the internet. You have no idea what they could be including in there. For all we know, those triangles all represent something, and the cross marks represent something else. And we could have been fooled entirely. Like with the 666, certainly we didn't see that back in the day. I don't know if we would have cared, but yeah, it is funny when you add those
I doubt
up.
it.
Yeah, just a number.
Well,
right?
so Daniel, I mean, it's incredibly unique individual, and love having him in the collection. I mean, I remember we were doing after the rediscovery, we had some sort of artist panel, and there was a question in the audience of like, how did you find out about the Google form? Why'd you fill the Google form out? Because he wasn't in the Curio Discord or anything like that, or Telegram or whatever. And his response was, I just like filling out Google forms.
It was also
So he would
hilarious
just go around filling out
to
Google
later
forms.
learn that Daniel went to the UC Davis University and works there and stuff because that's right next to Sacramento, where I went to school, and I also grew up in Davis. So it's very funny, a small world. All over the world, anyone could have filled out this form. And I think later on, although I don't know the details, Xcopy even fills out this form and tries to get into Curio cards. But it's Daniel, who lives a town next to me in Davis, where I've been to the university many times. And it was just a hilarious little coincidence that he was from Davis.
Yeah, Daniel's got, I think he's a PhD. He studies like chaos or ants, something like that. And then you look at his work and you can see it. Also, like his supply numbers, it's not just about rareness. It's also part of the art piece itself, because there's that recursive nature in the numbers themselves, as well as in his artwork. I believe, yeah, I think he's close to where Max is. He couldn't join today, but he mentioned in the Discord that he was just hanging out with Max recently in person, but we didn't know at the time where he existed physically.
Well, and it's a
Yeah,
Go ahead, Max.
I just caught him at a conference. It was really funny. He ended up being one of the speakers. I'm like, no way. Like, just staring at him across the room, and we're joking. Like, they don't even know. No one knows. We're like in the corner, like the meme. Like, oh man, it was so funny to see him there.
Because he wasn't talking. It wasn't an NFT conference, I'm guessing, or taking
No,
or something.
no, it
Right?
was like a science crypto conference at in Berkeley.
Yeah, he's involved in like DeSci, decentralized science, and a lot of others research stuff. I mean, he's a PhD guy. He's a scientist. He's the highest educated Curio artist.
Well, and it was the funniest thing. I think he might have told it to me when we did an interview after the rediscovery. I'm not sure he told his friends at work about Curio cards and being included as an artist. At first, with the rediscovery, he might not have even remembered that he applied to the project and that he sent out an email with a couple of images once, and that was kind of it after the Google form. And to this day, I'm not sure if he told his friends or his family or his work colleagues, because, like you said, Travis, he is such a professional in other aspects with his doctorate and so forth, and his serious, legitimate research. That even though he's included in one of the first NFT collections sold at Christie's and Sotheby's, it might not be quite a brag to those people. It might not impress them, or it might just
I mean, it's
confuse
not
them,
his
throw them
brand.
out of left field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be
And he's the
fair,
most doxed of all the artists.
I worked professionally in crypto for 5.5 years at a blockchain protocol organization, and I didn't tell my coworkers, and I didn't tell my parents. It wasn't until like 2022 or 2023 when whatever the something dropped, whatever people say, whatever human people say, whatever that phrase is.
Well,
Where I
it
had
was
to.
certainly
It was
hard
also
to
the
talk about it until the rediscovery. I definitely felt like I'd wasted Rhett and Travis's time, and I felt bad about that, and I wish we'd done better as a startup and so forth. But then, like Adam has said, it was completely insane and improbable, and I don't think it's ever happened before, where you put out your MVP as a startup, your minimal viable product, something that you think will work. You often don't have a lot of marketing money or any of that other stuff that you need. And it just kind of goes out there, and your company goes down, and everyone moves on to working on other projects. And all of a sudden, the internet decides that your company and your MVP are very cool, and that they want to collect them and they want to trade them and basically fulfill the goals we had for these cards. These were always meant to be collectibles. And it's really cool to see this whole community of people talking about them. And if someone will get a new person will come in, they'll be like, I just heard about them and I'm excited. Or they have 2 or 3 cards and they want to collect more and get the sets. And especially like we've said before, the way we design these is that maybe you say, oh, I like the Robeck cards, and you collect those 3. And then you get into the other sets and you're like, oh, I want to collect some of these, or one of the 1 through 10 sets, or a 1 through 3 set. There's all kinds of different ways where we hoped that these cards would be sticky and people would collect some and then want to collect them all or more or whatever. And it's really great to see that actually come true in the future.
Yeah, it was intentionally, it was a collector play. It was the idea of Pokemon cards, baseball cards, as a way of letting artists get involved in crypto and tell their stories and get paid for doing something on the internet when, we're talking about like a time where JPEG has no financial value, right? So yeah, tried all the tricks.
Travis, can you, because we've talked about Xcopy before, but did he filled out the Google form like
Yeah,
Daniel? It's the
I can
same?
go into the whole story about Xcopy. We can do it after, because we can do, Max can talk about his cards. We can talk about 30, and that'll do the set. And then anybody wants to stick around, I can just kind of share the Xcopy story.
Yeah, that sounds great. Let's go through the cards. We talked a little bit about Max's set, how they were made by many different people and their kind of different overlays. As you can see, the building, the color overlay, some nature, maybe a tree or some branches, and that these were all made kind of randomly at an art meetup. Max, do you have any more you'd like to say about your cards, 27, 28, and 29?
Yeah, just really quick, one thing about Daniel, he was the only person out of the seven of us that used his real name, which I find pretty amusing as well. So I just wanted to make a note of that. But yeah, my pieces were yeah, I would say like generative in the sense that there was an algorithm to create them, and yeah, and the ones I used for the Curio ones were from series 7. So I'd made 7 series of those before getting to those. And those were just the latest that I'd had, like the best ones that I'd made so far. So I went through the whole set of those series 7, and those are my favorite images out of like hundreds of works of art from that series. So those are like the best of the best. And something I found interesting is that when we started getting some of that unusual fame and started getting random DMs, and like people would message me like, "Do you have cards, sir?" Things like that. Like what? Like what's going on here? Um, People were starting to think that there was like hidden messages in them, or like there was some meaning to them, and some like, and I'm like, oh man, like that was kind of surprising.
Don't do your homework.
Yeah, getting some
Don't finish your
poems of them.
vegetables.
Oh my God. Yeah, anyway, yeah, started getting some interesting people were reading into stuff. Maybe it was just COVID times. People had a little more time to look at their NFT holdings or something. Anyway, yeah. Not much more to share about that. I did make another series after that. Um and those ones were pretty small. I would say they're like smaller than index card size. Everyone kind of wonders how big they were. They're really tiny, just really active back when I made those. And yeah, then after getting some notoriety, the bigger ones are 11 by 17, and those are much bigger. So I did another series. People wanted more physicals. I gave out a ton of the physicals from that series to community members, anyone who was engaged. And I made sure that, like, oh yeah, like you hooked me up with some original Curio ones. Like I would never just take a gift if I knew who you were. I got a bunch of anonymous donations, which to this day I'm not sure who sent those out, but yeah, I would hook them up with some of those physical originals, and then also try to give them some ones that I minted on the Wax blockchain. And I reminted like the whole series of those on Wax, and yeah, that was kind of surprising. Sold a bunch on there. Those are really awesome to give away. You could just give people like this like claim link, and then they could get it in their wallet, no gas, nothing like that. But yeah, so pretty much yeah. Do you guys have any questions about those series?
Well, the new larger ones, Max, I've seen them. They look really good in frames. Can people still buy those at your website? Where's your website?
Oh yeah. If you go to marisolvengas.com, there's a bunch on there for sale still, and I think I sold about like 20 to 30% of that series, and traded a bunch of those, gave a bunch away as gifts. But yeah, check out that. You can see some on there. Yeah, I'll probably put up some older ones. I bought a bunch of the older ones back from friends and others, art patrons over the years, just because I wanted to have them. One time I was supposed to have an art show in Portland, and there was a whole bag of them that I didn't end up having the show up there. I had to leave because of an emergency, and I got like 100 of the Series 7 back. So I got like a bunch of those back, and then some of those Curio ones were actually in that set, which is kind of crazy. So, but yeah, it's funny. Like, so I'll probably throw some of those originals from that same series back up on the website that I bought back recently from collectors.
Well, and definitely check out those new ones on the website. They're very similar. They're buildings with the colors and the overlays. and it's a really neat chance for you to support a real artist and to get some of that art on your walls. I think it's neat how these have been referred to as blue, pink, and yellow. There's not a lot more description to them, and it's a really neat set. And I also just wanted to say again the value of meeting people in person, even if you're not great at meeting people, even if you don't like talking to people, you got to force yourself to go out there and do it because I knew Max as my brother's friend, and we went to Burning Man together a bunch of times. And Burning Man's very uncomfortable if you want to go to an uncomfortable place. But by meeting people, we knew Max, and when it was time to get some more art, and sure, we went out to the forum, we went out to the people, anyone we knew. I asked Max for some art, and there's another friend of ours, an artist from Chico, who didn't go to Burning Man, and I would have included him in later sets if I could have, but we included Max first. So it really does make a difference to have that physical presence to go meet someone, to be nice to them, to be helpful and useful, to provide your skills to them. And Max did that, volunteering at our Burning Man camp, cooking food, bringing in ice, whatever it is, and just to be a part of things, and that you could get included accidentally into what turned out to be a huge project like this. So,
I just
Guys,
wanted
I
to
gotta
say too,
go.
like I think it's super cool that Max's cards are created in kind of like a manual generative process, which is I don't know. I always thought that was really rad.
in some ways, that kind of predates and mirrors what the CryptoPunks did with the guy has a hat or the guy has a cigar. Max's would be more, it has a tree, it has a different kind of tree, has a different color, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that series comes from like my computer science studying. Like I was very familiar with like algorithms and I made computer generated art like growing up. Like I'm like, oh yeah, one day if this is successful, I'll make a computer program to generate these. I wasn't even thinking of this is the way I express myself. I wasn't thinking of that type of art. I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm just gonna make something that this pattern that is creates aesthetic beauty and is fun to do with friends. It's that simple.
Well, and before we go on, Max, I think you should tell them about your NMUs, the non-monetary units. Max actually made
Oh
his own
yeah, yeah.
currency. He serialized it, so each currency had a different number, and then he would distribute them. But Max, maybe a little bit more about the NMUs.
Yeah, yeah, I'll be quick on that. So in 2007, I made a currency economy called viral monetary units. And most of the art I started getting into was called social practice, or social engaged art, and it's kind of like a seventh discipline in art. You have like printing, um, you know, um, painting, ceramics, performance art, and this kind of is like the new extension. And I was like really fascinated by it. Basically, it's like using society to help, as a medium more or less, or using people in society to help express themselves through art or like collaborative art making. And there's a bunch of examples like shop dropping where you put like art in stores. And so I was just experimenting with all the different ways. And I was really interested in using money systems for community-based currencies. So viral monetary units was a hyperinflationary gift-giving economy. So I had coffee notes, beer notes, and meal notes. And I printed up a ton of these through offset printing. And offset printing, it's like, the stuff you get in the mail, like massive mailers they use for that, and like newspapers. And so I once again didn't use my fine art printing skills for this. It was more mass production. Printed up 100,000 of these notes, had people like sign them, and I serialized them like with the serializer, and then tracked them on a ledger. And keep in mind, this is 2007, and this is like, using currency to communicate an art concept. And so I became, went to conferences with these, gave out stacks to people when they went to Europe or went on road trips,
Well, and
and
they
started
looked like
documenting. Yeah.
currency, right, Max? They had kind of borders like a US dollar. They had the serial number that you say changed. Every bill had a unique serial number.
Yeah, yeah, they're all like, uniquely, individually serialized. They're all signed by the treasurer, whoever helped make them, and then by the president, who was myself at the time. And then yeah, got those out there. I met tons of other artists with that were working on community currencies. I even tried to get like a major printing company to try to print these for me, and they're like, oh, like I think it was called like La Rouge Printing. They actually emailed me back and they're like, oh, like this is really cool, but you know, this isn't really money. And for the small edition that you're trying to do, try going with like a voucher printing company, or like they actually like, you know, cared enough to get back to me. And that project led me into, you know, working on crypto projects extremely early, and you know, Bitcoin in the command line days, things like that. And yeah, it didn't seem too weird that crypto was going to come from you know, other projects. Like, you know, communities needed their own lubrication, so to speak, or their own way to exchange and transact. And so it wasn't too crazy to see Bitcoin. It seemed really natural.
Max, I'm looking right at one of these 100 viral monetary units. Coffee promised to gift the bearer through redemption. 2008. VMU, International Bank of Gifting and Exchange. If you have redeemed, if you have redeemed this note for the commodity on the reverse, you are entitled to receive a full redemption multiplier valued at 3 times VMUs. Fill out entire note accordingly. Please print legibly and include a self-addressed stamped envelope. Please allow IBGE 2 to 3 weeks for verification and processing. So yeah.
Oh my God, that's so great.
But
So
by
yeah,
the way, yeah,
yeah.
those big Mara Sylvanus, those look good on the wall. Shout out.
Oh, nice. Thanks, brother. Yeah, that's those. So basically, you would get someone to accept it, and you go into this performance of trying to get someone to this note. If they take that note and then they fill out the back, like Dan said, they send it to my bank. The bank pays them 3 times the value, and it's hyperinflation, quantified based upon gift giving. And I this whole time in crypto, I'm like, what blockchain do I extend this on? What do I put this on? So even early on, I was like, I wanted to make it, you know, more digital, look for the right chains. And early on, I was thinking BitShares, and I was like, oh no, there's transaction fees, and like Bitcoin is like, you know, flawed, and like and I don't know, I feel like we're almost there. Maybe Solana, maybe I'll do some meme ones or something, but it's been in the back of my mind to extend it into crypto at some point.
Well, and if you think it's hard to get people to accept Bitcoin, try to get them to accept VMUs. Max, did you have any stores or coffee shops that actually accepted this project?
No, but lots of people are really convincing and very performative in getting them accepted. So I had a friend who I think, I'm not going to mention her name, but she would use them to get guys to buy her drinks, and she's like, "Can I get some more of those?" Because she, like, literally there were stacks of 100, and I'm like, "How many did you use this week to get like beer?" You know, like. So I know they actually did work in the right circumstances for sure.
Well, that's a little reminiscent of a classic Banksy project where he prints British pounds, but he puts Princess Diana's face on them. And at first he was laughing and giggling, what a great project. But then he said he saw that people started using them, and he realized that he had suddenly counterfeited a ton of money, and he kind of freaked out and I think burned the rest of them or something. But there's a great Banksy video about that. But yeah, thanks, Max, for talking about 27, 28, and 29. We're just going to keep moving here. Card 30. I don't know that much about it. Obviously, it's an animation. It's got the not the original, but the new Curio Cards mascot. I really like the way he has the C's for eyes. It says CC in the eyes. I thought that was really clever. And as Travis has told before, we timed this up with the Great American Eclipse of 2017. The previous cards were released on Tuesday. We moved this to a special day to time it up with the eclipse. And I remember watching the eclipse on the roof of my building in San Francisco, having those little eclipse glasses, and it was really neat. It's kind of become similar to the future card, number 10, where it's both a future and a vision, but also kind of a goodbye. And the eclipse kind of, to me, kind of represents the Curio Card project, where for a brief while we all worked on it. It didn't really work out. We left the project out there to see what would happen, and we moved on. But Travis, do you have more information on this, and perhaps some details about Thoros of Myr, a character from Game of Thrones? I think he was the fire guy with the sword. It's been a while since I read the books and watched the show, but a mysterious character, one of those armies that seemed like a really big deal until they got wiped out. But go ahead, Travis, more on number 30.
The thing, if you said about 30 was perfect. The thing I'd add is it also had that continuation of supply as part of the art piece itself. The eclipse was on August 21st, and when we made these, we made 821 of them. So the supply was dictated by what it was talking about. It was about this specific eclipse. It's kind of neat now that like we've come back around to another great Northern American eclipse just happened. This one I think went even right over the Bay Area, the one back 7 years ago. Yeah, the supply on the website says 816 because I believe some of them were locked, but 821 of them were created at the time the project was released. Thoros of Mir, yeah, I think it's the priest character who keeps bringing this flaming sword guy back to life. Is that character? So all there really is to say there is the artist of these cards is a big Game of Thrones fan, specifically more the books. I think Thoros of Mir has a larger role in the books, so that was kind of their way of pointing out they like the books more than the show. Yeah, all I'll say is 100% it is not me. I know people think it's me. I was the person who interacted with the artist on this project, so I kind of talk about it more than others because I have to be their voice sometimes to kind of say, hey, there's this card, but it is not something I made. I certainly did not possess the art talent on display here then or now.
Well, and I love
Also,
that
just to say there,
webpage, that little article that they made about this, where they go through who it could have been, if it was Tom or Travis or Rhett or
yeah,
Max or
my
Robeck,
favorite.
all of those things. It's great.
I really love that like Thor's of Mir, TOM, it's Tom. And I think is again one of those Curio coincidences that occur, just like 666 or the day I quit my job, or that the fork card was the forked card. Is definitely wasn't intentional, and yet it just helps feed the flames of speculation of who the artist is.
And after this, we did no more cards. As I said, unfortunately, the startup wasn't successful. We didn't bring any money in. Travis and Rhett needed money for rent. I also needed money for rent, and later moved out of San Francisco, and everyone went their own ways. And it's really interesting, I think, as one of the closers by accident again. We kind of left all the cards out in the vending machines. Maybe a different startup person would have purchased them all or figured out a way to shut them down or to remove the code. I know eventually, I think Travis went through and removed the addresses from the web page because we didn't want people to buy these and be upset. To think that they were going to do something or that they were going to be developed additionally in the future. We didn't want people to feel kind of ripped off. And we worried that a lot of the people who did buy them felt ripped off. And granted, we worried about wasting our patriots' time here, our friends' time. But after that, that was it. No more Curio cards. Travis, maybe you want to tell the people the story about X Copy right now.
Oh, here we go. I think I just got a Twitter bug there. My microphone wouldn't unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yep, sounds good. Go ahead.
I'll say one other thing real quick just to kind of wrap up just the whole story with Max. Is a theme here is that all the Curio artists are, active artists. This is not like a normal Christie's thing where everybody died 100 years ago. Every single time we've talked about one of these projects, afterwards we said, go check out this website or go buy this book or check out these stickers. All of the artists here, you can go learn more about them. They are still doing art. They exist. They have made other things. There's a larger ecosystem around these artists. I know Robeck had to run a moment ago, but I do want to mention for him, he's also created Sealed, which is like a full artist created run art marketplace, which is really amazing. I've bought some stuff on that platform. It's really easy to use. They have gasless purchases, etc. And he just has his whole group of artists that he supports and that worked together on that project as well. So certainly, go down the list of artists and check out the stuff they're working on. As for Xcopy, so what happened was when 30 was created, we weren't sure if it was going to be the last card. It kind of felt like it might be the last card because we were having no traction. We had rent to pay. We needed food. So it seemed like, this, we wanted to make something that could have the potential of, it's like when you're not sure if your show's gonna get canceled or not, so you make the last episode kind of work as an ending, but also maybe not. You can kind of still be open in case something comes through. We thought maybe some funding would come through, something would happen. So 30 does have an intentionality to it of being potentially the last card, but we were still trying to make this thing work. So I had a couple other artists lined up. There was actually a community vote, essentially. People voted for who they wanted the next artist to be, and people would submit their artwork, because we're also trying to get away from the whole just people we know in San Francisco thing. We were feeling a little bit more not concerned about the theft thing, because it just hadn't been an issue. It hadn't really come up because there wasn't as much hype around this. So we're feeling a little bit more open about opening it up more. And there was a website people could vote on what artwork they wanted. And the 31 card was essentially picked out because they won the vote, and it was this guy doing these pixel pets, and he even eventually he made these really cool kind of like 8-bit animals. He actually made an 8-bit raccoon as well back then, and when the Curio Cards rediscovery happened, I made sure to track down and buy that raccoon, and it was Curio Cards avatar for a couple of months there during the rediscovery. Was his NFT. It's kind of like a homage to the fact that he was gonna be a curio artist.
Well,
and he actually had this raccoon.
That was another one where we loved his digital pets idea, and if we had had any funding or any time to work on the project, we would have loved to done a whole second round with digital pets and roll it all out. But obviously, we couldn't even really afford to do what we did, and eventually had to leave the city because of excessive rent and so forth.
Yeah, we couldn't afford to keep putting these things up for free, and nobody getting paid, and also like the artists weren't making money either, so it kind of felt not fair to the people who were giving their time and artwork to the project. So even if we did want to keep going, it wasn't really fair to the artists either. But yeah, there was that kind of homage to that. We do the Curio DAO. If you look at the NFTs the Curio DAO address owns, you'll see the Pixel Pet Raccoon NFT held by the Curio DAO as our kind of homage to the fact that he was lined up as the next artist. But the second place, as it were, which more like first place in being 32, the next artist in line after Pixel Pet was X Copy. He had submitted a couple of pieces that did extremely well. I think that the only reason why Pixel Pet beat out was because of how cute it was. And this is a meme voting moment, right? People are voting on the memes. X Copies were, technically very complex and artistically very beautiful. And but he was like a kind of a darkness to some of his work. And I think the little pets were just so darn cute that they won out by a bit. But yeah, he was going to be card 32. He was all lined up and ready to go, but we just couldn't keep doing it. This was a thoroughly dead project at that point.
Well, I'd agree, Travis. I think the glitch style of X Copy is really interesting, but it's also very off-putting. If you're not a video game person, if you're not a computer geek, even sometimes if you are, the kind of blinking of an item back and forth at you, that kind of annoying blinking. But yeah, it was very interesting to have him apply. And as you said, and I certainly don't want to be critical or anything, but he didn't even win the competition. Pixel Pets won the competition. So it's even kind of worse. We have this amazing artist who's celebrated now in the NFT community, and not only did we reject him, we rejected him in second place. So it's not a great moment for us. No.
Well, that wasn't like the cult of personality around it. People didn't know who these people were. This was 7 years doesn't feel that long ago. I guess it really isn't. But in terms of digital art, it's eons ago. People were evaluating based on their gut emotional reaction. And you see a little cute GIF of a little pixel dog popping around, and then you see some really extreme, art that's like makes you feel things. It gets second place. But it was something like there was a good number of cards involved in the voting. I think it was. Somewhere between 10 and 20 cards were involved in the voting. So he still placed extremely high in the process. And second place was a guaranteed in as 32. Second place was still a winning place. I think 1, 2, and 3 were kind of guaranteed, not guaranteed, but the hope aspirational slots, as it were.
Yeah, it is.
That X Copy work, did he ever mint that on his own, or
no? My understanding is My understanding is the card that he submitted, the one that won, has not been minted otherwise. He kind of just put it aside. People have asked many times for him to release it. I mean, we have the whole remixes thing. Robeck actually ended up releasing one of his original submissions for Curio, his elf, the one that was a much larger GIF, a much more involved animation. He released that later. I think it'd be cool as heck, but it's also kind of neat that it was maybe this thing that only existed then. So that's totally up to Xcopy if he ever wants to release that. But my understanding is he has not released that NFT anywhere else.
And it is just a really funny side story for us that this huge famous artist applied for our project. And of course, everyone now is up in arms and they're like, how could you say no to Xcopy? How could you offend him and so forth?
I loved his work, but yeah, we just couldn't keep. I mean, this is money out of our own pockets. I mean, we never made a dime on this thing. It cost money. So at a certain point, we just like, hey, I think his art's cool, but we're done here. If I knew then what I know now, obviously that's always the line.
But yeah, that's a great story. And the card supporting the dog is a great story. I'm not sure if we have any more stories, but if there's anyone in the audience that has a question or someone on the stage that wants to ask us
Yeah,
anything,
just raise your
do
hand.
a couple more
I'll invite you up
questions,
as a
and
speaker.
then I think we'll head towards the end here. But if you guys have some questions, we have a little bit of time here.
Yeah, we got time just for a few questions. I do have to run myself as well.
Hey guys, I gotta hop off, but it's really good to see everyone here. Tom and Travis, like really awesome to see both you guys on the call. Yeah, I gotta get going. Dinner's awaiting for me, and got a bunch of things to take care of. But I really appreciate it. Happy 7th, Curio, everybody.
Thanks so much,
Our
Max,
little raccoon's all grown up.
and thanks for joining us.
Take care, guys.
And of course, we want to give a shout out to Rhett, who couldn't make it today. Rhett did all of the programming on Curio cards, all of the Ethereum contracts, the vending machines, the smart contracts. He was involved in the brainstorming with us on what the company should be and all of those ideas. So shout out to Rhett. I hope he's doing well.
Yeah, I gotta remember something. We did some of our brainstorm meetings at his apartment, and he had a whiteboard on his wall. And I am almost positive that the very first time Curio cards was ever written down anywhere as a phrase was on the whiteboard on his wall. I remember where I was looking at thesaurus.com and we were throwing around collectible words and alliteration. And I have a very clear memory of Curio cards written on that whiteboard on that wall in his apartment.
Well, and definitely shout out to Travis. I think Travis came up with the name Curio cards. I think we were kicking around like cyber cards, crypto cards, things like that, which would have been fun as well. And it's interesting at the time, I'm not sure anyone knew the word curio, but now I see it everywhere. There's a curio hotel collection. People are talking about curios as collectibles, curio cabinets. It seems like a much more popular word now than it was then.
And I'm pretty sure, Tom, that you came up with the idea of the raccoon as the mascot, which I love deeply.
Oh yeah, definitely all about cartoon or cute mascots for any company that you're making. I think
Pixel Pets proof that, right?
absolutely
The Pixel Pets
Pixel
beat
Pets, a
Xcopy.
great project, and they look great. I can even I remember them a little now with the square boxes. It's just anytime you have something with those beautiful old 8-bit square boxes. But yeah, the Curio raccoon. I think the South Park episode where Cartman is the coon, certainly laid in there and wanting to have a dog or a cat or an other kind of cute mascot. The over the
But everyone was already doing dogs, and we like. I thought I liked the manic energy as well. Raccoons collect things. It just worked so perfectly. I just checked. Pixel Pet. It's spelled PXL Pet. You can see they're on Twitter. Is at PXLPET. Curio Cards follows it. I believe I follow it. You can see what we're talking about.
There's also great raccoons in history in the Over the Hedge comic strip. There's a great raccoon, very spirited. And of course, nowadays, everyone thinks more of Rocket the raccoon from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. But
Yeah.
that was not really popular at that time. Certainly, the Marvel comic existed. But no, we were just going for more of a cute mascot. I think we had the guy draw one up on Fiverr. I wanted the Magic 8, infinity looking mask on him. I think a lot of people were critical of our early mascot as well as our early cards. They didn't really get it.
The original Fiverr art is pretty cursed. um, it's out there somewhere because nothing ever goes away on the internet. But the much more stylish redesign of Curio was a good move.
And it was always fun in one of these early chats. My friend Jesse Powell, who founded Kraken, was hanging out, and they asked Jesse, there, yeah, did you hear about Tom's startup company? And he's like, yeah, of course I heard about it, but I didn't think it was going to be worth $50 billion or whatever our volume ended up to be in Ethereum. So it was really fun. A lot of people certainly knew about it and were interested, but it just didn't strike a chord with the people at the time.
We have any other questions, or this has been great. Just go through everything.
I don't know, Adam, do you have anything you want to say? Do you want to sum this up? We have Adam McBride, the NFT historian here.
It's always fun to talk with you guys and share stories and always learn new stuff, right? I didn't even know about the 32. I mean, that's like a crazy side story that it's really nice to get together once in a while and catch up and hear these stories again, and a lot of them for the first time. It's just it's so cool, just the way Curio has a place. And like I talk and joke around with Tom about, like, the odds of a company completely failing and coming back are zero. And I think it's like the one of the things about Curio is just has this, you know to do something and be so ahead, to be so forward thinking, and just to really capture something just way before its time, and then through the magic of blockchain technology for it to still be there, kind of waiting for the right time to arrive. uh, I just think is really, really special. And obviously such great people involved in the project, doing great things today still, just make it even more special. And so it's Curio is just one of those things that ticks a whole lot of boxes, and will, outlive all of us. So it's pretty special.
Well, and like Travis said, it's really an honor for us to be included in that Taschen book. And they did it chronologically. So if you flip to the page before, it's Rare Pepes. The page before that, Spells of Genesis. A page after, it's Crypto Kitties. I think there's a fold out with the Ethereum, the Ether
Yeah.
Rocks after that, really sexy fold out. And
There's
yeah.
a full timeline fold out early in the book.
Yeah.
That
Did
is
did
really
you see?
great.
I
Yes.
helped him put together that timeline. Yeah.
That's why I was bringing it up. A huge shout out to Adam. He's
I,
mentioned
I
in the Toshin book.
we spent, God, a couple months on that timeline, and I haven't got to look at the book yet.
The amount of
It's
work and detail that went into this absolutely massive book. Somebody was posting images earlier when I unboxed mine. My cat climbed up and took a nap on it, and the book's way bigger than the cat.
Well, and
so
I,
you actually got a copy.
Yeah, I got one of
Oh,
the
that's
collector
amazing.
copies, and somebody, I think it was Heavy. If you go to Heavy's Twitter, you'll see, because I shared it in the Discord. I didn't tweet it myself. I shared it in the Discord. You'll see a picture of a black and white cat sitting on the book. That's my cat.
well,
Oh,
and I really like
it's very
the
cool.
version that I got. It's pretty good size. I was able to get a
Did you
discount.
have the photo when I teabagged you in the fucking corridor? I just want to know if you did that. That would be funny as shit if you put that in your book. And I teabagged you in the face. That would have been funny as shit.
Travis,
if
you
put
got
that in
to
there.
kick him off, man.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Sorry, I didn't. That was kind of a non sequitur, so I know what's going on there.
Oh, hold on a second.
He's still there, Travis. You got to kick him off, man. You got to
remove this
speaker.
guy.
I don't even know
Gotta
who this
remove
is. Twitter's lagging out on me. I don't even know who this is.
It's lagging
It's
out.
fine.
It's
I think
lagging out.
we're wrapping up here anyway. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming
Let's
out.
wrap up the cocks, guys. Wrap up them penises.
I wish I could do more, but Twitter is completely crashing on me here. Thanks so much for coming out. Last thing, check out the Kickstarter page. Curio Cards tweeted it. Grab some cards.
Well, back to
Excellent
foreskin.
7th anniversary. Thank you, everybody.
Well, and I guess that's about it for the Curio Cards chat. Sorry about that bit at the end there. Looks like we had some kind of a troll taking over the Twitter Spaces, and I agree with Travis. My Twitter Spaces wasn't updating. I couldn't see who was talking, and I don't think there's any way we could kick them out. But what a great, fun chat with all the Curio Cards artists. Shout out to Etheread who designed this fun hat. And like Travis said, go check out his Kickstarter project where you two could own physical Curio cards. They kind of look like playing cards. They'd be like baseball cards, like real ones you could hold in your hands. So thanks to everybody for joining us. Roback, Max, Adam McBride, Travis, of course. Shout out to Rhett and everyone else who collects Curio cards. I hope this video worked out. Hasn't been a lot of comments or chats, so I'm not sure if the sound worked. But until next time, which is going to be tomorrow at 1 p.m., check out the Bitcoin group right here on the World Crypto Network. Until next time, bye bye.